Hey, if you're a fan of Kiss, this video is for you. So, Gary, I found a couple of newspaper articles about this album. We've done a bunch of videos on them recently. We did the one on Rock and Roll Over.
Yes, that one.
And it just got me... So, okay, it got me thinking about album covers. We have those 3 albums right there in a row. We have Destroyer, which is one of the most truly iconic rock album covers ever created. Because it took Kiss and it took them out of being a band almost and turned them into...
the cartoon character, superhero.
The superheroes.
Yeah.
Then you put Rock and Roll Over out, which is, and it's so funny because so many of you commented on that's not only one of their favorite Kiss album covers, it's one of the best album covers ever made. It's so good.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
Then you have the next album, which is Love Gun. Again,
also
just
fantastic,
crazy cool.
Yeah.
Like amazingly, again, almost like superhero, bigger than life, Greek gods album covers.
I was going to say that.
And then Alive 2 comes out, which is okay. It has the cool Gene Blood thing. But
horrific.
Yeah, which is attention getting.
It was great.
But the other guys,
Yeah.
And then Dynasty, and here's my point. Every album cover after that is like they phoned it in. Okay, Dynasty becomes an iconic cover, I think, on accident. Because you look at that and you go, that is a totally phoned in cover. 4 guys' faces. It's not like the first time they did that. Did that on their first album.
Right.
So and it's like, let's put our 4 faces on there. Okay. And it becomes iconic on accident.
Yeah.
I got to finish.
Okay, go.
Because then they do Unmasked, which is just an unfortunately silly cover when you're trying to not be a band that seems like kids, that's a band for kids, and you put out an album literally with the comic strips on it.
Looks like a comic strip.
Then what do they come out with? Music from the Elder, one of the, again, phoned in album cover, Creatures of the Night, phoned in Part 3.
Oh, I like both those though.
They're cool, but they're phoned in, man. They don't even come close to Destroyer and Love Gun. They were masters at that. They had the greatest stuff.
Yeah.
And then what? Lick It Up, phoned in. I mean, they had to do it that way because we're revealing our faces,
Truly
but phoned
unmasked.
in. Then the next one, Animalize is the most phoned in album cover of any cover ever. Forget just Kiss. And then this one, which is, again, let's put our 4 faces, and now you don't even have the makeup. Do you see what I'm saying?
I know
it's like they come up with these 3 covers, which are just the most iconic things ever, and then one after another, they just get less and less inspired.
Could you also? That's your opening take.
That's my opening take on this. But I want to talk about this album, but I was looking at this going, it's just the most, it's like phoning it in.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can look at it a couple different ways. Way number 1, I would go and say, you have the trifecta of those album covers, Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun. You set the bar so high.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard to match that. So our expectation as fans... And you're going, okay, how are you going to top that? Well, I'm going to answer that by saying, you're not. Or, so, I mean, their faces were iconic. And I kind of, on the other hand, kind of feel like they were always, one of the things I like Kiss, and we've talked about, like, the Beatles and some other bands, like, they always showcase all for one for all. Although, when you started taking the makeup off, and you didn't have Ace, now you had Vinny. That's our Vinny Vincent reference of the day. And so on and so forth. Analyze, you don't even have everybody. Here you have Eric Carr and Bruce, Kulick. Personally, I kind of like this album cover. It kind of has an Andy Warhol type of
I was going to say,
it.
that's the one redeeming characteristic.
But yeah, I can get it. I mean... I also liked Creatures of the Night with the eyes glowing. That was kind of cool.
It was cool, but it was
yeah.
Phoned in.
As like artistic? No, I think this is kind of a harken back to that artistic. I mean, even going forward, like a lot of people, we mentioned the artist for Rock and Roll Over. Sonic Boom is one of their more recent albums. Was done kind of in the same, designed by the same artist as that did Rock and Roll Over, which is pretty incredible. If you haven't seen that album cover, that's kind of cool.
Better than this.
Yeah, it's better than this. And it almost has like a Batman feel to it. Like
that's really my point, man. It's like they may be okay album covers, but when you were so good at putting these iconic, just amazing imagery together, and because you were all about imagery, and then you put your album cover together, and it's
but
like and Animalize, you put some rugs. That's what it looks like. Hey, let's put a couple rugs together, call it Animalize, and anyway,
let's not kid ourselves. This era, the '80s, post Lick It Up era, they say Creatures and Lick It Up, put them back on the map. Okay, after that, I think they were having trouble finding their way, because suddenly you have a lot of competition out there with the LA scene, with other bands taking up, the mantle of, hey, we're rocking, and we've got attitude and individuality, and what was the thing that the guy from Easy-O said? We have,
that was the greatest word.
Originality.
Originalities. I think is that how he said it.
Yeah, thanks, Taro. That was great. So if you haven't seen that was from our Easy-O video. They quoted him. We have the most originalities from Japan, right? I mean, Kiss in the 80s, they weren't original, I'd say, at all. Like, they were copying, instead of being, they say that in sports a lot. It's one thing trying to chase and find, trying to beat the one team that's out in front.
Yep.
And it's easy to be the chaser. But once you are at the top of the mountain, and now you're kind of, they were at the top of the mountain in the 70s, during that trifecta of albums and Alive 2 and, all of that. But now this is a reverse role for them. They are not on top of the mountain, even though this album has King of the Mountain right on it. I'm the king. What's that?
King of the Mountain.
That's it.
Yep.
Right.
That is on this one, isn't it?
Yes. Kiss was not king of anything at this point. They're chasing. And that's my point, is like, they weren't setting any trends. They're following them. I mean, look at their look.
Okay.
In this era is also not leading, following.
Oh my gosh. Watch the music videos for these guys, and totally. It is. Now, let's talk about this.
Iconically bad, I've never seen,
right.
I've never seen so much neon, bro. I mean, I know it was the 80s, and I can name all the girls in school and high school that were like cranking the neon. I had a girl that sat behind me with everything she wore was neon. And I thought she was the coolest, most smoking, most trendy chick. But I didn't want to see that on a Kiss video and Paul wearing all that neon.
I know, man.
I know. What's that all about?
The androgynous thing was okay in the 70s when it went with all the other stuff. But then when they got to this point, and they're duplicate, they're like poison. Hang on just a second, this will be really quick. With hundreds of videos on our channel now, we've made playlists to make it easy for you to find whatever the thing is that you're interested in. We have a playlist with all of our Rush videos, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen. We have categories like 80s metal and even our popular magazine flip-throughs, where we go through page by page with Circus Magazine, Hit Parader, and others, all in 4K resolution. You'll find it all organized and ready to explore. Just click the playlist tab on our channel's homepage. All right, back to the video. With all the you go, guys, hold on a second.
No, it was not a good sign. But
let's talk about this cover for a second, because I want to point. Okay, so first of all, following trends. When you made that comment about Andy Warhol,
sure,
who was one of the biggest artists in the early '80s? Billy Squier. Billy Squier's Emotions in Motion. Who made that album cover? Andy Warhol did. And it's almost like, right after they saying, hey, Billy Squier did an Andy Warhol. It's almost like they're, to me, like I said, all this stuff's phoned in, but it's even copying what what Billy Squier had just done.
Yeah.
Now I want to show you something that I want to see if you've ever noticed this.
Okay.
Have you noticed the color of their lips?
Okay. Yeah. It's in a sense, I want to say, one thing I noticed is that, first of all, if you remember the solo albums, is that what you're tying into?
That's exactly it.
All right. You know, the lip color ties into the solo albums, even though obviously Bruce and Eric didn't put out solo albums as a Kiss member, but the color tie-ins are there.
Yeah. You got purple for Paul, red for Gene, and then Bruce has the blue, which Ace had, and Eric has the green, which Peter did. Now
That
this
is cool. If you guys haven't noticed that is kind of a cool piece.
Yeah.
I mean, had to be done.
For sure it was on purpose.
On purpose, for sure.
Whether they knew it was being done or not, who knows? But whoever the artist was definitely made that connection. There's no way that was an accident that they did that way. Now, and it also is a symbol of that idea of interchangeability. Interestingly, early on, they were talking about where these were just characters and they weren't necessarily.
Yeah,
so
that's a touch on.
It's
that.
almost like now. There's something else really interesting about that.
Would Vinny would have been pink? Was that what? I know. Vinny Vincent Invasion. That's my second Vinny reference.
You got to get those Vinny references in.
No, I'm going to stop.
Now, I'm going to show you something
Could be my purple shirt,
really interesting about
Pinkish
this.
Purple, I guess.
That does have a Vinny Vincent-esque
Yes.
color to it. Yeah, it does. Okay. How much do you know about process printing? Anyway, I didn't mean to spend much time on that like that, but I think it's such an interesting, there's all kinds of little symbols. Even though I'm saying this cover was phoned in, there are these cool little symbolic things that happen that the artist would have thought through.
I mean, I definitely think like this type of graphic work where it's not really a picture, it's more of a graphic of the band, was definitely, I mean, that's kind of what this album to me represents a lot, is just, this is Kiss's timestamp of here we are in 1980, making it in 84, or releasing it, making it in 84, releasing it in 85, and what was going on, right? I mean, look at them in the picture. I mean, they maybe a little more glammy than most LA bands, but I think if they were standing right next to Kiss, not right next to Kiss, right next to Poison or some of those other bands at the time.
Or right next to Madonna.
Yeah, for real. I mean,
they would have,
really
seriously, they would have
is.
fit in a Madonna video like this. I mean, look at Paul. Totally.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong there. I mean,
So-
the thing is, yeah. I mean, think about what's going on in culture. It's like Miami Vice and those kinds of things were hot.
I mean, look at the hanging sunglasses. Especially those glasses.
Right.
Yeah.
It is definitely a sign of the times, And look, even in this picture, you can see Gene's trying to look menacing, but dude, you got like an afro kind of going. I mean, all of them have huge hair. Also, sign of the times.
Yeah.
And they still looked pretty cool. I think when they evolved after this, I think, Paul had the super long hair during like I think the Crazy Nights and stuff, and I think he looked cooler then, but this was not. This is definitely a transitional phase.
And getting back to something I think you said earlier is that they are trend followers right here.
Right.
They're not where they were a decade earlier. 10 years earlier, they were bringing all the great things together and creating this amazing band and all this stuff, like bring all the things, the next step in the evolution of rock music and how to present yourself.
Stage presence, shows, pyrotechnics.
Think about how fast, man. So they're in 75. Alive is coming out.
Right.
Destroyer, the next year, Rock and Roll Over, the next year, Love Gun, and then the next year, Dynasty, and then Gone. And which is crazy because basically they were on top of the world for, 4 years?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't very long. I mean, yeah, I Was Made for Loving You, that came out and kind of put them back. You had, Beth before that. I mean, there was the things in the movies and, all the stuff. I mean, they were around, but not to the level like in those days, like, early on. And so then you had the, the true unmasking. You had Ace leaving, and then they get into the 80s, and it's like we're just, in my opinion, they went from, like I said, leading to I'm just another band with a whole bunch more competition, like I mentioned before. Because you had, how many other bands were coming out? Motley Crue. Young kids are not going to gravitate to Unmasked Kiss at the time. I'm going with Motley Crue. They're more rebellious. I relate to them a little bit more. Poison was coming out. Rat was coming out. Just so much. That whole LA scene was blowing up, and a million other bands. Even Metallica was coming out around this time. So if I'm a kid, even though I went and saw this tour and all that, Maiden was around. People are changing, and the musical landscape was definitely changing.
Yeah.
And so for them, this is why I kind of feel like they kind of lost their way, because they weren't leading anything. They're just kind of trying to figure out, where do we even remotely... They're trying to remain relevant at this point. And we can get into the reviews and the album, but even like their songs and stuff here, a few nuggets that were good, but a lot of it's just like, I felt like they were just trying too hard. And that's just my opinion.
Trying too hard is so correct. And it ties back to something. So when we did the Rock and Roll Over, I think it was on that one, you were talking about the Kiss documentary that's on Hulu.
Yeah.
So I went and watched it. I'd actually seen it before, because I think it was on AMC some time ago. So I watched it. I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen this. But Paul says something so fascinating in that. And when I heard him saying it, I was almost talking to the screen like, dude, don't you hear yourself? Because this is what he said, and you probably remember him saying this. He was talking about how the fans were kind of leaving them during this period.
Right.
Well, they'd left, and they were just, and they were, I say this and people are like, yeah, they still went gold, still went platinum. Yeah, because a bunch of people like us were kind of holding on. But they weren't getting, I'd be shocked if they had more than a couple of new fans coming in. Now here's the thing that he said. He said the fans were listening with their eyes. And he says it like he's shocked about that idea. Well, the fans were listening with their eyes. And I'm listening at going, of course they always do. They always have. You people are the ambassadors of understanding that concept.
Right.
If there's any human beings in the world that would be able to say, hey, everybody, guess what? Fans listen with their eyes. It should have been you guys.
Yeah,
you are the people that know. You're the spokespeople for fans listen with their eyes. And in that documentary, he's like, man, the fans listen. I was sitting there like, am I not hearing you correctly, or is this a complete lack of self-awareness right at this moment? Because
I'm
it was
sure at the time. Yeah. They didn't... How do you go... Because the landscape has changed, so the rules also change in order to be relevant. Back in the 70s, they were doing promotions and gigs, and that show, getting helicoptered into a high school and, that kind of stuff. In the 80s, nobody cared. You had MTV. That ruled. That dominated the airwaves. We're talking the same time frame. You have Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Thriller was already out. Prince, Purple Rain, already. How many great videos just from those 4 albums?
Van Halen,
1980, Panama. You have so much great stuff. Being put out that you have to compete with. You're not breaking into those. You're just not. Because you're not who you were before. You're the kind of has-beens at this stage. And so, that's why I kind of feel like they were trying too hard to be still relevant and hanging on. Doesn't mean that some of the stuff on here is not good. They're still there. They still can write songs, but I think that's part of where they're listening with their eyes. Yeah. Did you see the Tears for Falling video that you made? And what you're wearing? And did you look in the mirror before they're like, action? When you're doing splits and jumps, like I said, you got
big
so much
flowing,
neon.
whatever the heck.
I mean, he's got that. One cool thing about that video from this album, Tears Are Falling, right, which was their big hit off this one, is he's got that cool. Paul's always had some cool guitars, but he had that BC Rich mocking, not Iron Bird. It was a weird shape, but there's not that many people that can run around with that and make it look cool. He does, I mean, Bruce doing the solo with the shower, and he gets, kind of like,
oh my
Tears
gosh,
of
yeah, because at the end of it,
the,
Paul kind of goes back into the shower and does his hair.
I mean, it's MTV. Like I said, the rules have changed, and you're not leading. It's not like you helped bring on MTV, and it's not to say there weren't music videos in the 70s. But you're not leading the charge. And I mean, Thriller, right? And the Thriller video, that was groundbreaking.
Yeah,
with Michael Jackson.
like a movie.
It's like a movie, mini movie. I remember everybody kind of like hanging out with all their friends, being like, "Oh my gosh, it's the debut of Thriller, the song." And Kiss wasn't doing that. They weren't making a movie of Tears Are Tears Are Falling.
But again, getting back to what he said in that thing, they should understand that concept.
Better than anybody.
They could have been the people, should have been the people doing all of that stuff. But in a weird way, getting back to what I said at the very beginning of this thing, all of it started getting phoned in. Yeah. And it just got less and less inspired. And
I mean, we're not there. I mean, the documentary they talk about, how they were and what they were thinking at the time. I mean, Paul Stanley and Gene kind of, they produced this album. They're kind of like, we're all in. But at the same time, were you? Did you have what outside him? Like, who's giving you advice on what's... And I think, and you see that with artists, and this isn't just Kiss related, but you see that with a lot of people that, I mean, Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player ever, retired, unretired, retired again, and then he was playing with the Washington Wizards. Who remembers that? Yeah. Dude, he was long past his prime. You hate to see people, and this is kind of where Kiss was. They're kind of lost in this much more competitive music scene in the 80s.
And the people that had learned from them.
Right. Now you're getting beat by
them.
Now
they're beating
and outsold.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Motley Crue by this time was putting out,
And an interesting thing happened, and we'd mentioned a little bit about this earlier. If Live Aid had happened in 1975, people would have, or whatever, 10 years earlier, people would have been dying to get them to show up to Live Aid. Like, please, what do we have to do to get you guys there?
Right.
In 1985,
didn't even get a phone call.
I don't think they even got a phone call. And it's amazing thinking about that.
Yeah.
So as we sit here and think, they were still selling. They were still to a very select group of people.
Right.
They had a million fans around the world, like us, that were still paying the money and still interested enough to give them the money, but they weren't. But their relevance was gone. And so, in this album, look, Tears Are Falling is a good song. It's catchy. Yeah. It's kind of it's produced well. The melody's nice. The whole thing. The video's silly.
Yeah, you still hear it on classic rock stations.
It's a good tune. It's a good tune. But the rest of this album, for me, I'm king of the mountain. It's something you said earlier where it just felt like we're trying too hard. And the other thing that I didn't like is that, again, this is the generation before the hair bands. And that song right there at the end, I just, all night. And I go, oh, guys, come on. You know, there was something about that. Like, if you were still 21 years old, I'd, whatever. It's kind of funny and
it's
and
in
silly.
line with, some of their stuff from the rock and roll ever or Love Gun.
It would have fit perfectly there. But
fine.
there was something about it when they got to this
now
point.
you're 10 years later and you're still all night.
Yeah. And there was this part of
it.
me that I remember getting this and putting that in even, and I saw the song name and I was like, okay, I know what this, and you listen to it and you're like, guys, come on, but it is what Kiss is,
right?
But it was like
a little bit different 10 years later.
They're trying so hard and you could feel it, like, hey, let's do, and you go, guys, take a beat, slow down for a second. Maybe take a couple of years off, and then get back to me. Let's try some. I don't know, man. That's the way I felt about this when it came out. And listening to it, I knew we were going to talk about this, so I listened to the entire thing, like note for note, all the way again, and I walked away with personally the same feeling. Secretly cruel. I mean, it's like this attempt to write catchy music that would fit with the world, that was something, but it just, again, Tears Are Falling. So many musicians, if they get one song that good on an album, they'll get a record contract. I mean, there's some that do.
Right.
But these guys were not that. These are veterans. These are guys that had written some of the most iconic, crazy, awesome music 10 years earlier, and then now it's like we're getting one in there that's pretty good on this album, and the rest of it's like, I spent $8 on this thing, and I will never listen to this thing again. That's the way it came across to me.
I as a huge Kiss fan, I have to say the same thing. I have not listened to this album in like forever. It just doesn't come up. It's not something I'm like, oh man, I gotta listen to Asylum again. It's just this era of Kiss didn't have the iconic status as the early stuff.
And I think this one didn't go platinum. I think this one, I
couldn't tell you.
The Animalize, I believe, went platinum. Look it up, Animalize both went platinum. And I think this one barely eked out a gold. I could be wrong about that. I should have looked it up.
I mean, we talked about, some of the songs on here, like I said, when I re-listened to it, some of the ones that I liked were I'm Alive, which was kind of fast, kind of cool. It's the last song on side one. And then we actually both thought the same thing, Radar for Love. To me, it sounded Led Zeppelin.
It's Black Dog. It's a poor man's Black Dog. Which is kind of an old, kind of bluesy, riffy thing. So it's not. It wasn't even Led Zeppelin's idea, but they nailed it. Black Dog's one of the greatest. You can't do it better than that. And then they like recreate it in Kiss fashion or something.
And it's a good song. It's one of the stronger songs on the album, in my opinion. They don't play it live. They go with All Night, and obviously Tears Were Falling, but
I should have played Black Dog live.
Yeah.
Just get rid of this and just go for the good stuff. Okay, here we go. RIAA, 500,000 sold on this one.
Yeah.
So this one, and I think the rest of them eventually, because the next one was Crazy Nights. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights. Oh my gosh. I was, you know what? I gave them enough money over the years that I can make fun of them a little bit. They went platinum eventually on that one, on Crazy Nights.
Yeah, and
Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. Of course, that was basically how do we get more money from these guys? We'll just put out a best of with
another best of with the two songs.
Hey, I've got an idea. How about another best of album?
Right.
Since we've had how many?
Most of the songs were on double platinum anyways.
We had double platinum was best of, and then we did The Killers was kind of a best of. I'll throw a couple of new ones in there. See another best of. Here we are. When Smashes Thrashes came out in '88, the band had been together for 14 years, and they've had like 3 best of albums anyway. So, all right, man. Okay, let's take a look at the inside, and then we're going to read a couple things, and I think I took up way too much time at the beginning, but I thought that was interesting stuff for whatever. So here's the inside. I got a stain on my like a chunker or something. Kids must have got a hold of that at some point. So, yeah, this little outfit right here, this is the one I think they use in that video. It was kind
the
of
long, like trench coat looking
yeah,
thing.
he's got the midriff.
You know, I mean, for what it is, I mean, the playing on here, this is Bruce's first album, and Bruce plays great.
He plays great. A
lot of really good stuff. Yeah. You know, tasteful. You know, and you know, Eric Carr does what Eric Carr does best. I mean, he plays great.
The drums on here were reminiscent of stuff going all the way back to Creatures of the Night.
Sure.
Just that big Eric Carr, whatever that sound is that he had, this had it all over it. And it's interesting, I actually pulled this out earlier and looked and saw something, and also Desmond Child shows up on a kidding songs on here too.
Kidding.
So, and All Night is a Desmond Child
Interesting.
one.
Well,
I think he didn't have
that's
another one
also
here?
Desmond Child at the time was doing
King of the Mountain, Desmond Child.
I mean, he was doing Aerosmith, Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi. Like wrote one of the biggest hits in the history
Ever.
of the world.
Right?
Yeah. Who wants to be lonely?
I mean,
That's
when
Desmond Child.
So if you're paying that kind of money and bringing in the big guns of Desmond Child to help your songwriting, you're definitely not getting your money's worth out of it. I mean, because the guy's written great
album.
stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
didn't he help write "I Was Made for Loving You"?
I think so.
I mean,
you know what? That's right.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, when you he was involved with so many great things, and they put him on. How many songs has he did on this? So he's got King of the Mountain.
1.
2 on Who Wants to Be Lonely. Who Wants to Be Lonely?
Yeah, that's 2 right there.
Which should have been, okay, I'm Alive.
He was on that.
Desmond Child, yeah.
3.
And then you have, I know there's more on here. There it is. Radar for Love.
4.
All Night.
5.
There you go. So half the album.
Half the album he's contributed to.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you end up with, meh.
I don't know. I think, again, I think they're a victim of circumstance of the time.
Yeah.
And who knows what other influences were guiding them at that time, you know, to make some of these. Let's put out an album. Because, I mean, they put out an album, Animalize, was only a year out.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. And anyway, it was just, and I don't know, did they toured on this, right? I saw them several times.
Well, that's the new.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about that
from
earlier.
the soundboard is from this tour, which I don't know if you guys have been listening to that. I've also put that on as of late. We'll do a video on that because that is an interesting take, or I found it interesting to listen to because it's like truly live. Well,
yeah, I haven't listened to it at all, so we'll have to. So let's just real quick look at a couple of these reviews.
See what the reviews
that are kind
were.
of these are. I mean, people always knock Kiss anyway, so you don't expect much. But then, especially when they put out something that was a little lackluster. So, actually, when I found these things, I was surprised they weren't more cruel than they were about this record. So the first one here is This is in 1986, January 12th, 1986.
So it's been out a couple months.
So it's been out a little bit by the Columbia Daily Tribune in Columbia, Missouri, January 12th, 1986. And here's what they had to say about it. Kiss Asylum, Mercury is yet another collection of two-chord brain bashers that address various facets of sex, dregs is how they put it. I don't know if they mean to do that. And rock and roll. Original Kissers, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, have done a shrewd job of producing the band's 20th record, fleshing out the simplistic rock exercises with a booming drum sound.
That's
Totally.
what we said, yeah.
Yes. Full choruses and loads of flashy extended solos by new lead guitarist Bruce Kulick, the group's third fret grinder in as many albums.
All true.
Yes.
And, I do have to say that the vocals on this, there is like a ton of vocal production on this. It seemed like to me. Just lots of vocals.
Yeah.
And maybe that was a trend at the time. I mean, a lot of those 80s bands kind of had a lot of background vocals.
It's funny because I was listening to Back for the Attack, Dokken, which was around this time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and they have gang background vocals on like every song. I mean, they do. And so it was kind of a thing. So, okay, so while the production helps elevate the musical side of Asylum, it cannot lift the lyrics out of the gutter. Kiss may deserve mild kudos for sidestepping the Satan place shenanigans employed by other metal merchants, but this still is not a band likely to headline the Washington Wives' next bash. And that is pretty interesting because there was so much of that stuff. You mentioned Motley Crue earlier, Iron Maiden. You know, you had a lot of these different bands. I mean, Venom, you know, Dio. Yeah. They had all these references to that kind of dark magic, satanic.
Yeah, and at the time in the 80s, people were like eating that up.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, oh my gosh, you know, even the whole Kiss in service of Satan.
Knights and Satan, Kids and Satan.
All that crap.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. I mean, that was just, you know, now they'd call it clickbait, but that was exactly what it was. Right. I mean, it was just news fodder for people and, you know, pastors and people to be like, this is crap, down with the music. And
and stand outside concerts and
well,
they did with these guys anyway, even so.
Ridiculous.
But that is interesting. He gives them kudos for at least you guys didn't jump into that silliness.
Yeah, they could have. I mean, they were, as we said, they've been lost, but they could have.
And especially, I mean, especially with the Gene. You know, you look at that Alive 2 and you're thinking, if there was ever a guy
that gave me nightmares,
it looked like he could have been straight out of the bowels of hell. It was Gene Simmons on the cover of Alive 2, and it looked so cool.
Yes, it was super cool.
Okay. Let's see here. Nearly all 10 tunes involve witless, single entendre glorification. Glorifications of indiscriminate sex. These 4-minute elaborations of Kiss' longtime libido credo are built around classy lines like "get down and do it." One of the few. This is what I mean, man. I was listening to it, guys. Come on, man.
Yeah,
this is so tired. It just felt tired.
It is on the shallow side.
If it was Poison, that's what's so funny about it.
Yeah.
Poison, it wouldn't have bothered me at all during this period. It didn't bother me.
You didn't expect it. Or you didn't have a pre-expectation.
It was like, because these guys felt different. Old to me now.
Yeah.
And it just didn't, it was like, dude, it feels so like you guys are trying to live out your high school. You're the people that weren't able to leave town and are still talking about your high school glory days and couldn't move on. Yeah. And that's the way it felt to me.
Was it Uncle Rico and Napoleon Dynamite?
This was the hard rock version of Uncle Rico. That's the way. Dude, you nailed it. That's exactly right.
Thank you. I can throw this pigskin over the mountain. If we only would have won state.
Yeah, exactly.
If I would have won state, I would have gone pro.
Yeah, that's it. I remember that.
That's what we're going with.
That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. One of the few numbers that is not a crotch rock treatise, but oddly enough is the first single, is Tears Are Falling, in which composer Stanley assumes the role of a caring, sensitive guy who feels just as bad as his tearful mate that their romance has ended. Nothing on Asylum will inspire any Grammy talk, but with Tears, Stanley may earn himself a Best Actor Oscar nomination even without his makeup.
You know what? Funny. That's a great review because it's pretty on point.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's not mean like a lot of stuff we find about Kiss where they're like stupid, garbage, waste of time, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
I mean, he
was at least,
kudos to him or her. Was it him or her? Steve Pond.
Actually, Duncan Strauss.
Oh, reviewed by Duncan Strauss. Sorry, I was reading on the other one.
Duncan Strauss.
Yeah, good job, Duncan.
Yeah. Yeah, and I honestly, I can't argue with any of that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this other one, we're just going to read one more. This one's from the Green Bay Press Gazette. This one's February 16th, 1986. Right around the same time as the other one. This one says, typical crunch and grind power playing fills Kiss LP. Okay. Kiss Asylum, produced by Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, heavy metal, 2 stars. 2 out of what?
2-star review.
2 out of 10. Kiss panders to its audience shamelessly on Asylum. the infamous foursomes.
2 out of 10.
I don't know.
Sorry, man. 2 out of 10.
I don't know how many. I don't know how many it was. How many star options?
Isn't it
did they
usually a
have?
5-star
It
review?
could be, but I was.
Sorry.
Okay, here we
That
go.
made me laugh because that's how high we have Asylum on our list.
That's right.
2 out of 10.
The LP has reached gold status. It's done that with a raucous sound and decadence in the lyrics. Debauchery is such a major theme that it's part laughable, part sad. When Kiss thoughts do rise above the groin, the material is sympathetic to teen travails and more respectable. From Trial by Fire, here's a sample. Can't listen to nobody else. You just got to believe in yourself. They'll criticize you and lay down the law. They'll say, just who do you think you are? Most everything is delivered with the expected crunch and grind power playing and roughneck vocals by Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons with plenty of sensational, bombastic action. And noteworthy, the very next review is Dokken under lock and key.
Yeah, which you have right behind you.
Oh, yeah, right there. Which gets back to that point earlier of what was going on at the time.
Yeah, that's your competition.
And these guys are doing everything they can. And when they talk about writing some sensitive tune, you know, that's what Don Dokken was all about. Love, sensitive song type of stuff, even whatever, love lost, love gained, you know, anyway. And these guys are, but these guys are then doing this. So Tears Are Falling had that flavor, but the rest of it was not that.
I mean, these guys pretty much pointed out. And it's basically what we talked about. They are trying to be like Dokken, but you're also 10 plus years older.
Yeah.
And, you know, but you're not Dokken. And yet you're kind of have these kind of juvenile-ish, you know, lyrics and stuff. It misses the mark.
Yeah.
As this guy said.
Yeah.
Makes it sad. You know, because you expect more. I expected more. That's why I didn't listen to it very much.
This is the one I bought. I bought it when it came out, right there.
It's like new.
And this, and
other than the stain.
Yeah, that's right. Somehow something happened with it at some point, but it was anyway. We're knocking it here, of course, and it was a sign of where they were at the time. They were definitely lost. They were trying to figure something out, and they
probably self-admit it.
They do. Yeah, you watch the interviews, and they'll talk about that. Like we were lost at the time. And what was Gene doing right now? He's showing up in movies.
Yeah.
You know, Paul's getting frustrated. So there's all kinds of things that are going wrong here.
Making Runaway, you know, because that was with Tom Selleck. I mean, I think that came out a little bit before this.
You know what was happening right around here, though? Trick or Treat.
Ooh, that's right. He was in that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Epic Gene. Did he win an Oscar?
I think there might have been a nomination. But
oh, my gosh. I've laughed a little bit here. But, I mean, it's not to make fun of these guys. But it is one of their just weaker outings. It's just a place in time. And we love Kiss.
I know.
You know? I mean, that's the thing. I mean...
But look, man. Look. That's part of the joy. You know, at the time you're disappointed in it, but today it gives us all kinds of fun things to talk about. That's all part of the big story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the Kiss story that makes the whole thing so interesting and fun and fascinating. And so even these speed bumps and the wrecks are still interesting now. Yeah. They're all a cool part of the experience. Looking back at what happened, just like we said with Kiss Meets the Phantom. It's so terrible and so awful, and at the time it was so embarrassing, and today I'm so glad that it exists. Yeah. It's because it's all part of the arc.
Part of the lore.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it. And what true Kiss fan isn't going to really, you know, they're going to have spent the money, bought it, especially people our age, and we're like, maybe disappointed. Maybe some of you love it. Yeah. Bruce is playing, you might love it.
Yeah.
It was definitely, you know, good.
These two guys were
rocking.
You know, they brought their part into the.
They brought their part in well. You know, whatever they were paid, they earned it and some.
Yeah. Gene's in Hollywood. These two are playing really well. And Paul
Paul's holding
Stanley's
down the
kinda
fort.
Like, yeah. He's
I mean,
holding
he's
down
doing
the
the
fort,
best he
trying to make something happen. And you know, still came out with at least one really cool tune.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was fun talking about it. I learned about printing, right?
I hope that was not. Maybe I'll cut that out. I don't know if that was too boring because it gets in the weeds with that stuff. But I that's what I've done that. I've done graphic design for years, and I know all about that stuff. And so when I noticed it, I was like, this is actually an artist actually thought this through.
No, it is a cool cover.
So,
I do like it. It is from this era. This is one of my favorite covers. I had the shirt and I wore it proudly for a long time because I thought it was cool.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you're still watching this, thank you so much. If you're not following the channel yet and you're still watching this, you really should be following the channel. Like the video. Leave your thoughts on Asylum. Did you love it? Did you agree with these people that did the reviews? Did you did you agree with what we had to say on this? On how this thing, how it presented itself, and what this meant to you in the greater Kiss arc of history. So, and also we know, because we know that about ourselves, if you're a Kiss fan, you know other Kiss fans.
Yeah.
And when you have a video like this, we'd really appreciate it if you just take the time, hit that share button, email it, throw it on Facebook, message it to something like
thanks.
that, and
We
get it
really,
out there.
really do appreciate it.
Really sincerely appreciate that.
This was out when we
stuff.
met already.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Maybe one of our first discussions was
Would have been about
how great was Asylum.
Dude, this was so exactly. That's awesome.
You like that album cover? Did you know?
That's great. All right, with that, have yourself a fantastic day.